In this video, we're going to go over the LSAT press to standing. Staple exercise for developing the Stalder press to handstand or the LSAT press to handstand. And following the progressions in this video can in a lot of cases be all you need to do, all you need to work on in order to achieve the Stalder press or the LSAT press to standing, assuming you already have good and solid strength in the standing variations of the press to handstand. We'll be working from an elevated surface, so I'm going to use 2 chairs, but 2 boxes or 2 high parallels, for example, could also work just as well. So a few important things to make this actually work how we want to work. First of all, from the basic support position, like if I'm just hanging between 2 rings, for example, or in this case, I'm going to be holding my own body weight between the 2 chairs. One of the first things you'll need to understand is that we are trying to depress the shoulders. So the scapular movement, the movement of the shoulder blades, is starting out by pulling them down towards the floor. And this is both the lats and the pec muscles that needs to do a lot of the work, smaller muscles as well, but these are the 2 big ones that need to be active to pull the shoulders down. And in the first variation, we'll be focusing very much on just developing and moving through like pure strength, not allowing any kind of momentum, because it'll force you to get a feel for the activation that we actually want and need to make use of in the later versions, where we can allow a bit use of momentum. First progression is going to be the tuck LSAT to tuck planche. And it can be useful to, if you're doing these on chairs or boxes, to turn the hands a bit to the outside, as there will be a bit of extra pressure on the wrists, as the shoulders will need to go slightly towards the fingertip side. So it's going to look something like this. From a tuck LSAT, depressing the shoulder blades, the scapula hard, and then lifting the hips up towards a tuck planche position, working without any use of momentum. It might not look like this in the beginning, but a smaller range of motion can also be completely fine as long as we are working through the scapula, keeping the upper back rounded and not taking advantage of momentum and swinging into the position, but just using pure strength. Over time, obviously, we want to work towards getting the hips more in line with the shoulders, but it's completely fine if it doesn't look like that in the beginning. Next progression is going to be what we call the low LSAT press to standing. It's going to be basically the same motion and activation that we're doing. We're going to be doing a full LSAT position, so legs extended. And then our goal is to keep the legs straight, but be able to land with the feet just behind the line of the hands. And this is also where it starts to become relevant to have enough elevation so you don't get limited by your feet hitting the floor. But it's going to look something like this. LSAT position, push back and up, and land with feet just slightly behind the line of my hands. Once again, push back and land. I like to have people, at least in the beginning, work just the concentrics for this one. Now we could also work with reps going back and forth, like so. But the risk is that when you're doing this variation, it's very easy to just abuse the momentum of going back and forth and not actually doing the correct activation and working from the right places, but just basically swinging a bit like a pendulum, not really getting much out of it. The next step would be to just have the intention and fighting to lift the hips higher as you do the low LSAT press to standing. So something like this. High hips before coming down. Yeah. High hips and then coming down. Just gradually working on increasing the range of motion. This is also where taking slight advantage of the momentum can come into play, because it will allow you to press a bit higher into the position, actually get some work in the higher ranges. We're not abusing the swing. You can see that I'm not doing a giant swing and taking massive advantage of the momentum. I'm just kind of going with the movement, allowing it to continue, using just a bit of momentum to lift a bit higher. So either just having the intention of going higher, and that's the important part. We can also add a slightly elevated target. So now my goal would be to land with my feet on the blocks instead of the floor, which means that I will have to push a bit higher. Yeah, so we could gradually work on building a higher and higher tower of floor of blocks or whatever I have available to use as a target. For the final two progressions, we'll be working on actually pressing so high that I'm able to place my feet and get to stand on the chairs, boxes, whatever kind of support you are using for the exercise. In the first progression, I am gonna allow my legs to bend to make it easier to place them on the chairs. By bending the legs, I make it so that I don't have to press the hips as high before I'm able to place my feet. And over time, you can work on having less and less knee bend. I like having this intermediate step where you are allowing the legs to bend just because it gives you exactly the same direction and the same kind of push, basically doing the exact same movement as we would do in the full version with the legs straight, just very slightly easier. And the final step is obviously doing the same thing but landing with straight legs on the chairs. Once you're able to do this final progression for reps, you will either be very close to be able to doing a LSAT press to handstand, or you will actually be able to do it. Basically, what's happening here is that I am pressing from an LSAT and all the way into the starting position of my regular press to handstand. So assuming you already have a strong press to handstand from standing, this is just a matter of putting the two together and doing the full thing.